la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. Thank you for braving the ominous weather. This is only the few and the brave and the bold are here. It will make it worth your while. So this is actually really, feels like a very special, sorry, I have my back to you guys. A very special and kind of new moment of fruition for Temple Beth-El's relationship with Kids for Peace. It began, gosh, I don't know, 8 years ago with Yakir Englander, who's for congregants here may have heard him many times. His vision of really this kind of prophetic person. And Mayor and I were just captivated by his stories of this organization, Kids for Peace, where it just made so much sense. Kids meeting, month after month, year after year, forging relationships. And I, bless you. I remember having you in my office, Meredith, and then coming, it was just before the Gaza war broke out in 2014, and we had an Israel trip there, and a bunch of representatives from Kids for Peace came and spoke. And the members of this trip for weeks kept saying, as the violence progressed, like, I wonder what's happening with these kids. I wonder what's happening with these kids. The impression was so deep and so profound. Since that time, the work of Kids for Peace has just blossomed, and you'll be hearing more about that. In my time in Jerusalem, I run into so many teens and older who have been affected by this work, who have participated in the program. And so I see it quietly percolating up through Jerusalem, through Israeli society, to affect deep change. It was really an honor for us Feldmans. We just returned from a sabbatical in Israel, and our daughter Adina was able to participate. And just one little simple activity, I got a WhatsApp that Adina was to bring a picture of our home, and was going to be looking at the home, sharing pictures of the homes of everyone who participated. And even in the little anecdote that she brought back, how our home in Arnona, a nice, comfortable neighborhood in Jerusalem, was maybe different than the home of her Muslim friend, and the same. So really, it's about the sharing of our life's narratives. Another high moment for me during the sabbatical time was at the conclusion of one of the days of Ramadan, going to a neighborhood that was just so close to the neighborhood in which I live, but I would never gone there. It was predominantly a Muslim neighborhood, and breaking fast with 400 others. And as a Jew, I was more in the minority there. And that was just tremendous to see. And doing a little study beforehand about what is the meaning of fasting in our traditions and how does that play out, and speaking with also Christians as well. So just to maybe give us a little context in Torah, we might get more of that. Just last week, as we concluded the book of Bamidbar, we read about these cities of refuge, places where if there's been violence or accidental violence, someone can go and be safe. And I think as American Jews, we have the opportunity to be a place of refuge, a place when we're not totally in the thick of the conflict, can be a place to exhale, a place where we can open our doors and our hearts to you, and to be a place where the dialogue can expand, even as you are doing so at home. So I hope that this, in our wilderness journeys of finding places of rest, finding oases where we can drink the waters of peace, that tonight can be another place of refuge. And so just a few thank yous. Miriam Chatnover, who's a member of Temple Emmanuel, whose plane was delayed, can't be here, but she's really the reason why we're here. She is directed Tzedakah towards Kids for Peace, really bringing them into the center of an effort to support Israeli youth. And representatives of sisterhoods who have made this happen. So we have Karen Ashkenazi, maybe stand up if I'm saying your name, from Temple Israel. Yay, thank you. And Erica Popkin from Temple Emmanuel. And also, they're not here, but the Sephardic Heritage Alliance, SHI, has really publicized this event and reached out. And of course, our dearest Judy Rosenzweig and Ina Kupferberg, who are sisterhood, who head up sisterhood and have coordinated this effort. So we're about to celebrate, or not celebrate, commemorate Tisha B'Av, which is when we mark the destruction of the temple and those broken places, the suffering inflicted upon us as Jews, and the suffering of this world. And I hope that I really see that this evening is a spiritual preparation for Tisha B'Av. And Leonard Cohen says that it's in the cracks that we can let the light in. So in this place of dialogue and sharing of narrative, as we share maybe that which has wounded, we can also open to let the light of understanding and really deep listening in. And so we have here with us tonight Meredith Rothbart, who's the head of Kids for Peace Jerusalem, and Ismat Otham, am I pronouncing your last name? Othman, who's the coordinator of Pathways to Peace in Jerusalem, and Eliana Perlman, was in the same school as Adina during our time in Jerusalem, and Omar Daleh, who's a new friend, but already an important one. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Meredith. And I'm going to turn on the AC again. How's that?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tara. Tara also opened her home to us, and we really, really appreciate that. If we sit down, is that okay? We feel like we can have a more intimate conversation. In Kids for Peace, we spend a lot of time sitting in circles and talking about our feelings. And when we speak with groups, we like to welcome the group into our community and create a safe space for sharing and dialogue so that we can bring you in and show you a bit of what it's like to be part of our family and part of our community. So my name, as Tara mentioned, is Meredith Rothbart. I grew up actually in Pennsylvania. I've been in Jerusalem for 11 years. And I am so honored to serve Kids for Peace Jerusalem as the Israeli co-director alongside my Palestinian co-director, Tarek Saman, who right now is in Washington with 50 of our youth. Lobbying and learning about social change. Kids for Peace was founded in 2002 during the height of the Second Intifada. And in that violence, 12 families came together and wanted to provide a peaceful opportunity for their children to get out of the violence, to get out of the suffering of Jerusalem. And so 4 Jewish, 4 Christian, and 4 Muslim families came together. The youth met once a month throughout the course of the school year, and they spent a summer actually in Texas, welcomed by a local camp there where they met Jewish, Christian, and Muslim children of their age there. It was a really powerful experience. And more families the following year wanted to participate. More communities throughout the U.S. wanted to host groups like that. And the group of families wanted to keep getting together. And so this was how Kids for Peace grew. And Kids for Peace has been growing organically and in a grassroots, as bottom-up as you can get program for the last 16 years. And I'm going to let the kids introduce themselves and tell a little bit about what kinds of activities we do on a day-to-day basis and how it's impacted them into becoming who they are.
Hi, my name is Eliana. I am Jewish Israeli. I'm 15 years old. And I live in a small neighborhood called Baka in West Jerusalem, a Jewish neighborhood. And I was brought into Kids for Peace initially by my dad. My dad is a tour guide, and so he knows everybody, and he is connected to everything, and he is involved in every organization there is to be involved in. And so Kids for Peace was one of those organizations, and he was very excited about their work and very involved and really believed in this kind of thing. And so he really wanted to bring me in and get me involved, and I agreed to join. But before Kids for Peace, I never met a Palestinian before. I kind of lived in a small bubble in my neighborhood that I never felt the need to leave. And so walking into the room for the first Kids for Peace meeting was really, really challenging because I was very shy and I was very young. We were 11 years old. And we were walking into a room not knowing what to expect and not knowing who these people are. And will I be able to speak to them and connect to them and what's their story? Like, who are these people living a few steps away from me, yet I have never seen it? I mean, I've never met, probably seen them, but never actually met in my entire life. And naturally, in that first meeting, the first few minutes, the room kind of divided into Israelis on one side and Palestinians on the other side, and it was kind of obvious to notice from the language because the Israelis were speaking Hebrew and the Palestinians were speaking Arabic. But we kind of realized that this was pointless. Like, we can meet others from our same community outside of this room. We don't need to be in a Kids for Peace office in order to do this. And so we started to, with the help of our parents and the counselors, we started to interact with each other and ask each other the most basic questions, like, what's your name? And where do you live? And, like, what religion are you? Who's your family? How many siblings do you have? Where do you go to school? All these basic things that you can just ask anyone as if you're walking into a new school and getting to know your classmates. And you start to realize that you have some things in common. After all, we're all 11-year-olds, and we're all living in Jerusalem, and we might all love to play basketball or listen to the same kind of music. And so you start talking more about that and start really to get to know each other and to speak with each other. And we met twice a month, and we had summer camp, whether in the U.S. or locally. And that was really the first few years we really got to know each other and to be friends, to create these really important bonds with people who are different yet somewhat similar to us. But for me specifically, growing up in a Jewish neighborhood and going to Jewish Orthodox schools, the school I go to now, Hartman, is it's Jewish Orthodox feminist and all girls, and so that's kind of targeting a very specific audience. And I never really felt comfortable telling people about Kids for Peace because I didn't know what their reaction was going to be. I didn't know how my friends would react to the fact that I meet Palestinians twice a month and play with them and have activities with them and go to camp with them. And it was very scary for me to say that. And every time anybody would ask me what Kids for Peace is, I would have two answers. One, oh, it's this organization I'm involved in. Or two, oh, it's a long story, I'll tell you later, and then never actually tell them. And so it kind of came out that I had two lives. I had my Kids for Peace life, and I had my regular life, my school and my friends, and not really my family because they knew of what I was doing, but kind of that area of my life. And it was very separate, and I didn't really connect between the two because I was very, very hesitant, and I was very shy and scared to kind of tell people about this organization because it was new to me, but I got into it and I got these friends. But this isn't something that you will typically see like in a Jewish school. Like, you won't find a Palestinian there. And so telling people that I know Palestinians and I'm friends with them, that might be a bit hard for them. And that was hard for me because I was scared of criticism. But 3 years ago, Kids for Peace wanted to recruit new kids for the organization. But not only they wanted to recruit kids, but they wanted it to come from the schools of the youth that are already involved in the organization. And so they asked me to go with a Palestinian to my school and speak to the younger kids about coming to Kids for Peace and just telling them about Kids for Peace. And I really, really, really did not want to do it. I felt really awkward about the whole situation, and there's never been a Palestinian in my school before, and that's something that's kind of it's unheard of to bring a Palestinian into an all-Jewish Orthodox school, and it was really, really terrifying. But a really, really good friend of mine, Karine, who is Christian Palestinian, who I knew for quite a few years, and we got to be really, really close, she agreed to come with me to my school. So if a Palestinian agrees to come to an all-Jewish school, then I can agree to speak with her at my own school. And so I agreed to do it. And we went one morning, me and Karine, to my school. And we walked into a 7th grade class, and we introduced ourselves. And Karine spoke in Arabic. Not that she doesn't know English, but she just wanted to kind of bring that language into the school, because that's also not a very common language because we speak in Hebrew. And I translated her because those were very simple words, so I could still understand that basic Arabic. And the girls, they were shocked because most of them have never met a Palestinian before, and a Palestinian has never been in my school. But we started talking more about what Kids for Peace was and what our work is doing, and all the amazing things that we do. And they looked at us and they saw a girl from their school who they see every day laughing and talking and interacting with a Palestinian. And it's like this really new experience, and it's really mind-blowing and like really opening to see this whole new perspective. And we got really, really good feedback. And they were interested, and they were excited, and they asked us lots of questions, and they asked her a lot of questions because they didn't know who this was. And they were really, really excited to have this experience and to see us come into my school. And we even got a few of them actually joined Kids for Peace, which was a really great success. And that was really the turning point in my life, because beforehand, these were two separate worlds. There was my Kids for Peace world and my other, school world and friends. And the second I brought Karine into my school life, and I introduced her to my friends who were at school and the younger kids, and I saw that it's possible, and that yes, I might get a few negative comments from some of my friends, which is definitely hard, but we learn to deal with it and to have conversations. But it's not something that I should keep separate. And this isn't our goal. Kids for Peace's goal isn't to stay a tiny, tiny, closed, shut-off community in Jerusalem, but it wants to expand, and it wants to expand into our lives. And this was really the moment that I was able to bring Kids for Peace into my life and to say, yes, I'm in Kids for Peace, and I'm proud of it. And I might get some negative comments, but I also have a lot of support, and I believe in this work, and I'm going to continue doing this work, and I also want to bring it into the rest of my life because it is important to me. And I'm not going to hide away, and I'm not going to press delete, and I'm not going to tell people that it's just this organization and not tell them anything else. But yes, I'm going to explain to them what this work is, what this organization is, who these people are, and why it's so important to me. And this was really the way that I was able to kind of connect between those two worlds and turn Kids for Peace as a bigger part of my life.
My name is Omar. I am a 16-year-old Muslim Palestinian from Jerusalem. Thanks for having me. Nice to see you all. My story with Kids for Peace and with peace building in general is a little bit different than that of Eliana's. Whereas Eliana didn't meet the other until a very late stage in her life, relatively, and I wish you all, a long life. But growing up, I was very integrated with Israeli community, with Israeli society, and knowing Hebrew, that allowed me to be involved in many Israeli extracurriculars, and I've had many harsh experiences within those extracurriculars. But the story I want to focus on today is a little bit of a different one. The story I want to focus on today is a story which, if you hear the context of, you'd say that politics is best kept out of it. And I'd agree. It's a story of a football game, a soccer game for you Americans. I live in Malha, a neighborhood in Jerusalem, which is known for two things mainly. One, the mall that exists there, and two, the soccer stadium. Malha. Malha. Yes. Malha. Malha. Yes. Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. Right, you see, exactly. It's famous for the mall and the football stadium. And so one time I went to a football game there, and it was all fine. I came in and I was sitting, and I'm a very big fan of football when it comes to watching it, not so much playing it, but this was an experience which meant a lot to me. So I was sitting down there, and the stadium was filled to the brim with fans, mainly from the opposing team since they were playing home. And the game started, and my team scored a goal. Almost instantaneously, a chant started rising in the opposition, and that chant was "Death to Arabs." And it started off as something very small with a few people, but very quickly this became a very loud chant that people even outside the stadium could hear. And I could just sit there in awe and fright of what I was witnessing, because it was truly a terrifying experience. To see thousands in their masses standing up and saying these vile slurs, that was something that made me feel very unsafe, very uncomfortable, and left me speechless. I often say, and I began my story with this. I think politics and things that don't pertain to soccer or football should be left out of it. And that is one case where it wasn't left out of it. And that was one case in which I felt that within my own neighborhood, somewhere where I call a home, was very alien to me, and I felt very marginalized from. It is a collection of experiences like these which had me join Kids for Peace. I saw a side of Israeli society that I didn't have a great experience with. But on the media and the people my parents met with, I knew there was another side to Israeli society that was willing to be called Arab-loving and was willing to sustain horrible insults in front of thousands, but still hold their own and still believe in justice and peace and freedom and coexistence and dignity. And I really wanted to meet that side of Israeli society. When I was 11 years old, I joined Kids for Peace. And I remember my first meeting as well. It wasn't with Eliana, but I remember my first meeting. And while it was divided for the most part, given that I could speak Hebrew, I went and I spoke to the Israelis there. Because even from the first meeting, I was hungry for an interaction that was respectful of my national and cultural identity, but was also tolerant and not necessarily respectful, but just had an ear to listen to with my political views, which would be taboo to present someplace else. And that, to me, felt like the home, whereas my own neighborhood didn't feel like one. And this is my 5th year with Kids for Peace, and I am, I've done this work for a long time, and I'm planning to continue on doing this work. And it was that experience, that revelation, which changed my mind with regards to justice and hope for my people to live in dignity and freedom and peace. And ultimately, it's that notion that I believe Kids for Peace can achieve. Thank you.
in Kids for Peace, we have youth from all over the spectrum. We represent right now 40 different schools throughout Jerusalem. Religious, secular, right-wing, left-wing, private schools, lower economic class schools, and all of the kids come to Kids for Peace for different reasons and with different stories. And in the beginning of the program, many kids have never met the other before from either side, and many kids have been deeply affected by the conflict, with family members who have been injured or killed. The Israelis often talk about the challenges of having their older siblings or their fathers in the military, and the fear of both sides. And so in order to get the conversation going before we talk about the conflict and before we engage in politics, we have a comprehensive educational program that gets the youth to that point. So now I want to introduce one of my best friends in the world, who's Ismat Othman. So the first time that we met, he picked me up to go for a ride to one of the Kids for Peace programs, and I sat in the car texting my husband the whole time, terrified that I was getting into a car with a real Palestinian man. I thought this was the end of my life. I was so scared. And we got stuck in traffic. And we were in the car driving to our office in North Jerusalem from south, and we started to talk about our lives. And we've since then, just in the last week, spent about 10 hours in traffic alone. And 6 years later, our kids, our friends, we're in and out of each other's homes. And we have so many difficult experiences to share that I hope we have time also to get into, and we'll hang around a little bit more. And who in the last 2 years has become our director of programs.
Hi, thank you for your coming and for hosting us. My name is Ismat Othman. I'm from Bet Safafa, Muslim. Bet Safafa, it's southern Jerusalem. I'm involved in Kids for Peace before 6 years. I start like a volunteer dad, after that counselor. Now this is next 2 years. I'm the director of the educational 7th grade. I start learning English just for the last 2 years. So if my English is not really clear, it's clear? Oh, thank you. I try to do all my best. Thank you. Appreciate. So in Kids for Peace, we have start in 6th grade groups, in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade. After that, leadership and CITs, that counselor in training, and YAP, it's youth in action, like Ilyana and Omar. They make our life in action also. So the 6th grade, we started the program with just to learn the other side, to learn about their religion, culture, their homes, symbols in their homes. Like Adina, she started last year, this year, in 7th grade, and her mom asked about photos. So also we ask from the siblings to bring some of their faith, symbols of faith, culture from their home, to learn about them. And the 7th grade, we start about the identity and community and environment. In the 8th grade, we learn about the conflicts around the world. After that, the Global Institute in Washington, D.C. The kids do the summer camp here. And the Youth in Action, maybe they have 4 projects. Maybe Liana and Omar can explain more about their projects, that they are very, very important for us to bring our voice in our Jerusalem. Thank you.
So Asmat spoke briefly about the Global Institute. You can hear me fine here? Thank you. Okay, brilliant. Okay. Thank you. A little further away. Is this good for everybody? Yeah? Any objections? All right. So in the summer of ninth grade, we have a turning point in the action that we take within Kids for Peace. We have a experience in Washington, D.C., shared by Palestinians, Israelis, and Americans, Christians, Muslims, and Jews, that we call in Kids for Peace the Global Institute. It is a 10-day program on Washington, D.C., in which the Israelis, the Palestinians, the Americans learn how to lobby on Capitol Hill, and also learn about societal change and how to cause change within their own community, ultimately creating a more just and peaceful Jerusalem. So these tools are really necessary these tools from the Global Institute are really necessary for the work we do following the Global Institute. Should I talk a little bit about YAP too? YAP is the organization that follows suit after the Global Institute. So if the Global Institute is in the summer of ninth grade, in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, we're part of this YAP program. YAP stands for the Youth Action Program. It is a program in which we take the honest dialogue and the friendships that we built and act on them, because it's not enough to just talk and just hope for peace. You really need to create the change and be the change you want to see within your own community. So YAP is a relatively new program, and there were 4 different tracks within this program this year. There was the advocacy track, the media track, the community garden track, and the tours track. Thank you. Just to give you a little bit of context and allow you to think a little bit as to what these tracks, what we did throughout this year in these tracks. I think we'll talk about the projects now or later. The advocacy, I was part of the advocacy group, this track within YAP, the Youth Action Program, which aimed to bring Arabic subtitles to cinemas in West Jerusalem. Now, to some people, this might sound like complete gibberish. Why would we do this? What does this solve? What problem existed in the first place that we solved? The problem is that in East Jerusalem, a predominantly Palestinian, Arabic-speaking side of Jerusalem, there are no cinemas. So to make this experience, which is almost a given for all of us, to go and watch a movie is almost impossible for Palestinians, Arabic speakers living on the eastern side. So for Palestinians who want to enjoy this experience, they have to go over to the western side where there are significantly more cinemas. But even then, there are no Arabic subtitles. So a movie might be dubbed in Hebrew or maybe in English with Hebrew subtitles, but it doesn't have Arabic subtitles, let alone Arabic dubbing. So, yeah, this Kids for Peace project came as a result of a personal Kids for Peace experience. At the end of each year, we rent out a movie theater, and we take the kids to watch a movie. So we watched Moana, and in this scene, it was an English movie. There were Hebrew subtitles, but some of the Palestinians came out after the movie, and they're like, "Okay, what just went on?" And it's that phrase, we say jokingly now, but it says a lot about the situation of language equity in Jerusalem. And it says a lot about where it is now, and it says a lot about where it's going, but what we should do with it as well. So this personal Kids for Peace experience gave rise to this whole YAP project now that I think overall was a pretty big success. Obviously, some cinemas completely turned us down. Some didn't want to talk to us, rejected us. Some had a problem with Arabic subtitles, but one cinema called the Cinematheque in West Jerusalem, was willing to host the pilot with a few movies with Arabic subtitles at the beginning of the school year next year. So the coolest part about this is that we get to choose our own movies, but it's really meaningful that now we can make this experience a shared experience, but also make it accessible for Palestinians who couldn't watch this before. And although it's just a pilot, if it goes successfully, this could be just a door to so much more. So it was one of the movies that we've decided on screening is Inside Out. And it's a movie that relates, for those of you who know it, and for those of you who don't, it's a movie that relates to a human struggle of dealing with emotions and the personification of emotions. It's an animated movie, very nice. I watched it myself. I really like it. But it's a great success that we were able to achieve that within Kids for Peace, and it makes us feel like our work is not just, constant blabber about what things, make us feel pain or what things we are terrified of in Jerusalem, but also acting on those fears in a positive, constructive way to create a more just, equal, and free Jerusalem.
In the car on the way here, earlier in the week, sorry, it's been a really long week, Omar said, "What are our projects for next year?" I just looked at him and said, "I don't know. What are our projects for next year?" The whole YAP program is structured to help the kids survey the community and figure out what is important to the youth and what the community is feeling is important at that point. And so it's part of, and I'll take a step backward. In the first 12 years of Kids for Peace, we were mostly focused on learning about each other, on interfaith education, and on dialogue. And the community was really growing, and people were feeling really close to each other. But there was a lot of research that was saying, okay, you do peace programs, the kids have a really personal, transformative experience, and then what? And we took this research that was coming out, and we were a little bit concerned that we weren't really accomplishing anything either. And so we did a huge evaluation internally on the past 10 years of Kids for Peace, and we found that our community is really strong, and the kids feel really connected to each other, and we have a parallel parents program and home hospitality and neighborhood walks, and this was all great. But the problem that we found in our evaluation, we're very critical of ourselves, and we're constantly reflecting, was that the kids weren't doing projects to make change. They didn't take on leadership roles in their communities, and they weren't making peace. And so we did another evaluation to try to figure out why. And the main reason was that they didn't know how, because they'd never actually done it before. And so what we tried to do is add this element of the program to give them an opportunity to have some small successes and to understand what it's like to create a project from scratch, to have the staff support to follow it all the way through, and to decide what is important to them. So I'll let Eliana speak a little bit more about the projects. Tara, how are we on time? Okay, great.
So I was part of a different track. I was part of the media track. Nowadays, 2018, everybody is connected to media on lots of different electronics, and we spent a lot of time listening to the news on different social media platforms. And really, this is the information that we get. The website that we go on to see the news, this is the information that we're getting from that day. This is the perspective that we're getting. This is what we're hearing from the outside world. And one of a big issue in Jerusalem is that the media is very divided. And so you'll have Israeli media and you'll have Palestinian media. And a lot of times, if you're Israeli or Palestinian, you will only hear and listen to your side of the media. And very often, the different media will have very negative views about the other side. And so if, as an Israeli, you grow up only hearing the Israeli news, you might get information and the picture that Palestinians are bad, and vice versa for the Palestinians about Israelis. And as an interfaith organization, as an organization that includes both Israelis and Palestinians, we don't want to have this division. We want to bring everybody's story and everybody's perspectives. And we want to show the full truth and not just different parts of it. And we want to show our story as youth living in Kids for Peace and dealing with these issues on a day-to-day basis. And so we took media as a tool in order to show the world what we think, what we feel, and what we experience. And so we decided to collaborate with the advocacy group working on the Arabic subtitles. And we are in the process of making a short documentary about this issue. And so we interviewed directors from the different cinemas in West Jerusalem, and we interviewed random strangers on the street outside of the cinema, either going to and from the cinema, watching a movie, and we asked them different questions. If they were Israeli, then typically the questions will be more like, would you go less to the theater if there were Arabic subtitles? Would that push you away? And if you're Palestinian, we would be likely to ask, would you come more to the cinemas? Will you feel more safe? Will you feel like you're involved and you're included in this activity of watching a movie? And we also included the story of the younger kids who went to watch Moana somewhat unsuccessfully. And we are still in process because, again, YAP is the youth taking action and not just the grown-ups doing everything from above and us having dialogues. So we are the ones actually filming everything and interviewing everyone and editing it. So we're coming with zero experience, so we've had to also learn how to use the camera and how to interview people and how to use these different online websites of editing. So we're still in the process, but our goal is to finish this documentary and to share it with the world and to post it on social media and on the news and to publicize it and to show the world, right, there's news and there's politics, but this is the actual story of youth living in Jerusalem. This is our story, and we want to show it to the world. And so hopefully that will be finished sometime soon, but we're really excited about it. And then just briefly about the other two projects, the community garden and the tours group. The community garden their main goal was to create a shared space in Jerusalem where people can feel comfortable coming to, whether you're Israeli, Palestinian, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, it doesn't matter. And they focused on a neighborhood called Abu Tol, which is a neighborhood with both Israelis and Palestinians. But even though it's this one tiny neighborhood in a tiny city of Jerusalem, it's still pretty divided. And there will still be separate streets or separate homes. And they really wanted this neighborhood that already has the potential to coexist to really have a reason to interact with each other. And so they made a community garden. They took a space, they got the space, and they turned it into this beautiful garden. They the soil and the planting and the watering and the making sure it's all okay and making it a really nice space and putting up decorations and really engaging also the kids of the community. They told them to come and help them plant and draw pictures and make origami and all these different things that they want to do to make this a really nice space. And it was really, really successful, and they had quite a few events in that community garden, bringing many, many different people from the community living there. And it was such a success that Kids for Peace is now taking a step back from the community garden and passing the responsibility over to the neighborhood and to the community living there. And so now they have this shared goal, this shared responsibility of the community gardening and keeping it up and to make sure all the plants are still there and that the events are still happening and that it's still a really nice place to hang out in. And now they are the ones responsible for it, and they're working together. And that is amazing for us because not only did we success, but we managed to pass it on to other people in our community in the city of Jerusalem. And the last group, the tours group, as we must have mentioned before, there's East and West Jerusalem, and a lot of the people would have never gone to neighborhoods in the opposite side of Jerusalem. And this is an issue because Jerusalem isn't that big, and we're such a tiny, tiny, tiny dot on the map, and yet people don't interact with each other, and they don't know where these friends live. Where do my Palestinian friends live? Where do my Israeli friends live? I don't know where their house is, where they hang out, where are their parks, where are their schools. And so it's really important to bring each other into our neighborhoods. And so each youth in this track had a tour in their neighborhood or in a different neighborhood they chose to lead a tour in, and they really got to show their neighborhood. This is my home. This is where I walk to school every day and come back from school every day. This is where I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, unless you're at school, of course. But this is where I live, and this is the environment I live in, and it's important for me to show you where I live, because this is where I come from, and this is the area I feel safe in. And so if an Israeli initially doesn't feel safe going into Palestinian neighborhood, but when they see that their Palestinian friend is comfortable with their home and is comfortable enough to bring their friend into their home, then that makes you feel welcome, and that makes you want to come and explore. And it's a great opportunity to see Jerusalem, and not just half, but the whole thing, and to really get to see new places that you have either never heard of before and never got into it before. And some of these tours are also open to the public, so not just Kids for Peace gets to come to these tours, but also the public. And we're trying to get as many people to be aware of the area around them and to really engage with each other and go to see each other's neighborhoods.
Thank you. We have just a few more minutes, and we want to take a couple of questions. I just want to add, these kids are pretty awesome, right? They are so engaged with one another. They take to the streets in public and almost even take it for granted. The first few tours that we've run that the YAP youth have created have been really terrifying for the staff. Leading a mixed group into these different neighborhoods on both sides. I mean, for me, as an Israeli, sending groups where kids have a kippah into Palestinian neighborhoods was really scary. And we had an incident where while the youth were walking through a tour near the Mount of Olives, they watched the police bringing home a boy who had just been released from prison. And the Israeli kids were very nervous seeing a mob of Palestinians receiving the boy. And the Palestinians in the group were terrified seeing so many police coming in at once. And the boy, whose name was also Omar, leading the group, was texting with his friends who were at the top of the hill, letting them know, because they take care of each other to say when police are coming in and out of their village. At the same time, he was getting threats for bringing Israelis into the group. And he said, I don't care. I'm not scared. It's important for these Israelis to see my neighborhood. And I'm not just doing something to sing Kumbaya and pretend that everything is okay, but I want Israelis to see my reality, and I want to see theirs so that we can make a difference. And this has been such an inspiring experience. I mean, when we talk about being youth-led in Kids for Peace, it's redefined every day when we're asking these kids what they want to be doing. And then we have no choice but to listen to them. So if it's okay, we'll take 2 questions. I think we'll take maybe both at the same time, and then we'll let the youth answer. Yeah. 1, 2, yeah. Yeah, yellow. And then great. And can we take both questions at the same time? Yeah. Yeah, she said. She said, how can she? I'll let you answer. In the microphone. Yeah, first pass it back, and we'll let the kids answer.
My question just was, how can we support you and your organization?
Good evening. My name is Mike Delafraz. I'm part of SHI, one of the sponsoring organizations for this evening. My question is from Omar. As we all know, everyone all over the world talks about BDS and anti-BDS and everything else. And everybody knows this dilemma really affects the Palestinians and their job more than anything else. So I wanted to ask him what he thinks of BDS and how to go around to stop it.
I'll do that one
So I want to start off by saying, is this good? Can everybody hear me? All right. I want to start off by saying that in Kids for Peace, it's very important for us to bring Israelis as Israelis with their Israeli narrative, with their Israeli opinions, with their Israeli national identity. And it's very important for us to bring Palestinians as Palestinians with their national identity, their cultural identity, and their narratives. So part of what you see, part of the landscape, the societal landscape that you see within the Kids for Peace community is that people can be people can support the actions of the IDF while others can criticize it completely. People can sit there and support BDS while some people may be working actively against it. It is very important for us not to only attract the people in the middle who don't have an opinion about BDS or don't support BDS. It's important for us to bring people who are pro-BDS, and it's important for us to bring people who are anti-BDS. And, if the question was directed personally at me, I think this is a long conversation in and of itself, and I don't want to spark any controversy, especially while we're in the final moments of this conversation. But I do support BDS, and that is part of what makes Kids for Peace special. It's not an organization meant to bring the center-left people to sit down and argue and preach to the choir. It's an organization meant to bring nationalist, patriotic Palestinians, nationalist, patriotic Israelis to sit down, have honest dialogue, and take action that eventually leads to a vision of a more peaceful Jerusalem. And I was talking about this with Meredith today, and I said, in the Palestinian community, we say a lot about these Kids for Peace these peace organizations, that they're normalizing, that somehow we're collaborating with Israelis, and they're making our lives so miserable. So how can we do that? But I don't think Kids for Peace is a normalizing organization, because for me, I see this as a way to manifest my vision for my people to live in freedom, dignity, and peace. But for Meredith, this is a way to manufacture a Jerusalem that is peaceful and secure for her children. So while we may disagree on which values and virtues manifest themselves in the Kids for Peace community, and whether we're working to end the occupation or to build a more secure Jerusalem, at the end of the day, we work together in these YAP programs to form some sort of a peaceful Jerusalem, at least one that we can all work on in unison. And that is really the beauty in the struggle of Kids for Peace.
I have 500 bosses. We have 500 families. Thank you. The question of how to support us is really, really meaningful for me, because that's really what we need. We're tiny. We are trying to make a really big impact. ISMAT's job in the end of October is to let the families that are accepted into the program each year know that they're accepted, and also to let the families that were not able to join know that they're not. And we don't currently have the capacity to bring in all of the families that are asking to join Kids for Peace. We don't have enough space in our offices, and we're trying to build a community center. We're really trying to grow. We're currently partially funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development, and our funding is currently in jeopardy because of the controversy between the U.S. government and holding funds against the Palestinian Authority. People-to-people programs like ours are bundled into that funding as well, and so we're a little bit nervous. So we definitely are seeking financial support, and at the same time, we really are seeking support from the American and international community for our work to know that peace is possible. We don't want the world to give up on us. Jerusalem is a hot point, and everyone turns there and looks toward it to see what the tone of the Middle East is going to be, and we live there. And so please keep spreading the word about our work, and please keep praying for us, and we'll do the same. And come visit as well. Thank you.
Asking questions downstairs. The sisterhoods have brought some sweets. It's not a Jewish event without an oneg, so you can continue the dialogue there. Again, Judy, don't go out. Thank you so much for, and the other sisterhoods for supporting this. And may this be one of many continuing visits here at your home at Temple Beth-El. Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu, Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam shalom. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam shalom. Thank you. Meet you downstairs. There's an elevator.